Happening, folks? Back with another scene reaction, and we're going to watch a scene from Elementary, a Sherlock incarnation. Many people will know this stars Jonny Lee Miller, as well as Lucy Liu as Jane Watson, one of the more notable features of this articulation. Now, I'm a huge Sherlock fan. I have a compilation of the stories that I read going way back. I have all of the Jeremy Brett movies. I have the collection for the BBC show with Cumberbatch and Freeman. So yeah, I'm a big fan of Sherlock, but I have to say, of all the incarnations, I think maybe Elementary is my favorite, and there are multiple reasons for that, but Jonny Lee Miller's excellent portrayal of Sherlock is a big part of it. And yeah, ultimately, I think he plays it in some ways very true to the original character design, and that relates also to his addictive or drug-using personality, which is a original character design element that different articulations of Sherlock have dealt with differently, like the BBC version. It factors into a couple plot moments along the way, very notably, but by and large, it's background. They don't spend too much time talking about it. And again, the Jeremy Brett version, it comes up right at the beginning as it does in the original stories, but by and large, it stays in the background and they just talk about, how he smokes a lot of tobacco. But in this version, it's very central, and he goes to Narcotics Anonymous meetings, and certain decisions that he makes along the course of the show are based on his experiences as an addict and what that has led him to do in his professional life. So yeah, it's a really complicated and emotionally, I think, profound performance. The show ran for 7 seasons. We're gonna watch an episode at the end of season 2, the very end of season 2, called The Grand Experiment. Bottom line, Mycroft Holmes, who in many articulations of the show or of the characters has an adversarial, if comedically adversarial relationship with Sherlock, which I think traces back to the private life of Sherlock Holmes. And very much, in the BBC version, the Mark Gatiss character has that type of paternalistic, critical, but still trying to look out for his younger brother type of relationship. In this version, Sherlock sees Mycroft with a lot of disdain, at least up until this point. So again, this is end of season 2. He comes in beginning of season 2. He's a recurring character. And again, Sherlock sees him as wasteful of his intellect and abilities. He doesn't like Mycroft's fiance, so he generally is very dismissive and just doesn't want to be around him. And he eventually comes to think that Mycroft is involved with some very shady people, and he starts looking into it, and sure enough, it seems like he's involved with this dangerous international cartel, and right at that moment, Lucy Liu's Watson gets kidnapped, and it seems very much like the people that Mycroft were involved with are responsible. So Sherlock is furious, and he says, we're going to work together to rescue Watson, and once we do, I'm never going to talk to you again. He's absolutely furious. Well, we, the audience, and right here, Sherlock eventually learns that Mycroft has actually been putting himself in harm's way for Sherlock and for Watson, which is to say, in Sherlock's history of chemically abusive, addictive behavior, he eventually made some people in an international cartel very angry, and they wanted to kill him and Watson because they were living together. And it was only through Mycroft's intervention as an agent of MI6 behind the scenes that Sherlock and Watson were still alive. And because Mycroft did that, he put himself in harm's way and ultimately now has a target on his back from this international cartel. And Sherlock eventually learns that this has all happened because of decisions and bad behavior of his own. And so now he realizes that far from Mycroft endangering Watson, it was actually him, and Mycroft is the one who's trying to help undo it all. So in this scene, we get some great music. I think it's very subtle. It doesn't overtake the scene in any way, but it's sublime. It's transcendent, and it perfectly, I think, articulates the emotional exchange here, which again is between two brothers who, up until this point, have been very standoffish and dismissive, especially Sherlock. So here we go, a scene from the final episode of season 2 of Elementary called The Grand Experiment. And it is between Jonny Lee Miller as Sherlock Holmes and Rhys, I think, Ifans as Mycroft.
So I know the truth about you, MI6. You'd got out. They pulled you back in because of me.
Joan.
Yeah. I know you didn't tell her.
You're angry.
I'm just confused. You owed me nothing.
You're my brother.
The connection between my drug use and the mistakes I made regarding Sir Mohan could not be more obvious. And the program to which I owe my sobriety dictates that I make an amends. And at the appropriate juncture, I shall. In the meantime, you should know that I'm going to fix this. Every last bit of it.
Amazing. It's like a 45-second scene. I'm like on the edge of weeping. Again, the music does such subtle heavy lifting there. It really adds to the moment, but it doesn't get in the way of the moment. And once again, you can feel the sense of regret and emotional sympathy from Sherlock for the first time toward Mycroft's character, who is revealed as being far less, lackadaisical and unprofessional as Sherlock thought. So I think it really hits on multiple themes that converge by the end of the second season really well. It shows you how much Sherlock cares about Watson, which is something that has been building over the course of the first two seasons. So when she's abducted and he freaks out, it really stands out how much they've grown. And ultimately, again, it leads to him discovering truths about people around him and his own actions that he was ignorant about to his own embarrassment. So again, after this point, we do get more comedic interactions between Sherlock and Mycroft, because again, Sherlock eventually gets annoyed that Mycroft is still with the same fiance, and the remainder of the show, there's still some funny moments between the two, but I think this is such a sweet scene, and I think the music really does a great job of fitting the moment perfectly. So shout out to Jonny Lee Miller, shout out to Rhys Ifans, shout out to the writers, shout out to Lucy Liu. She really is great, and I think a very challenging role, because ultimately, you change one of the two major characters and you make Watson a woman instead of a man. People are going to be scrutinizing that, I think, extra carefully. But she's amazing, and I think the chemistry between the two is fantastic. And if you watch any of the behind the scenes stuff, people will know they're basically just like, sweethearts, like not like in a romantic sense, but they just are so like, oh, he's so amazing, and then he'll be like, oh, she's so amazing. So big shout out to both of them. Let me know what you think of the scene. I'll see you next time. Peace.